Hi everybody, welcome to the Top 2 Inches of Sport podcast with me, Anthony Sheriff. This is a podcast about something that's always fascinated me, the mindset required to succeed in elite level sport. On this podcast, I'm going to talk to people who I really look up to in the world of sport and try to find out how they deal with the highs and lows that come with consistently striving for success in the unforgiving environment of elite sport. For this week's episode of the podcast, I spoke to former goalkeeper Maik Taylor. Maik had a great career at the top level, playing for some top clubs including Southampton, Fulham and Birmingham, and he also won 88 caps for the Northern Ireland international team. In this episode, Maik talks all about his career from his early days in the army to facing some of the world's greatest footballers. I've actually wanted to have a top goalkeeper on for a while now because it's a position that just requires so much focus and mental strength to deal with high pressure moments and also the ability to bounce back from costly mistakes. Maik discusses all aspects of the mental side of goalkeeping in this episode, so hopefully you enjoy this week's episode of the Top 2 Inches of Sport with former goalkeeper Maik Taylor. There we go. Right, Maik, it's brilliant to have you on the podcast. I've wanted to have a goalkeeper on for quite a while because I think it's just such an interesting position, from a mental point of view. So thanks very much for taking the time.
You're welcome.
So I remember you playing like all those years throughout the Premier League. I remember you getting capped, I think 88 times for Northern Ireland, but I probably never really heard an interview with you. I never knew much about you, so I just probably always assumed playing so long for Northern Ireland you were from Belfast or somewhere like that. But just when I found out I'd be speaking to you on the podcast, did a bit of research. You actually grew up in Germany, and there was no real obvious link that I could find anyway to Northern Ireland. So how did that whole international thing come about?
Because my father was in the army, and I was born in Germany. So at the time, there was a bit of a loophole, so I was eligible to play for any of the home countries, and for Germany, being born there. My mother's German, father's English, and so yeah, it just come about that I could play for any of the home countries: England, Germany, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and just at the time, I was about 28 years old and playing in League One as it is now for Fulham. And Northern Ireland showed an interest, found out about my eligibility, and asked if I wanted to be involved, and never looked back really.
Yeah.
Very thankful, yeah.
Yeah. So you were actually born in Germany. Did you spend all your childhood in Germany then, or how long did you?
Yeah, with my dad being in the army, yeah, spent my whole childhood and my whole schooling years in the army, yeah. In Germany, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So when you were young, were you always mad into goalkeeping? Were you always driven to make it as a footballer?
No. It's quite bizarre, really. Before I was 19, I'd never ever played in goal. I was always an outfield player, and then I joined the army myself as an outfield player. But I joined the army, spent 6 years in the army, and it was while I was training in the army that I donned the gloves, and obviously wasn't good enough to play an outfield. And never looked back. Yeah, it was quite a quick transition from kind of newly starting playing in goal to becoming a professional, coming out of the army and making a career of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long were you in the army for?
6 years.
Yeah.
So I was nearly 24 when Barnet, Ray Clements was the manager at Barnet.
Yeah.
And they'd had me watch. I was playing non-league at the time for Farnborough Town, and playing for the army and combined services as well, and played lots and lots of matches. And obviously that's I learned from all my experiences of playing in the matches. And picked up things pretty quickly. Obviously, genetics and stuff. 6'3", I could jump. My discipline in athletic was high jump. I could jump. I always had a natural coordination, hand-to-eye coordination to catch a ball, and things progressed very quickly. And obviously, I was obsessed with whatever I kind of set my heart on. I get obsessed with it, and the training and whatnot. Obviously, spending all them years in the army as well. That held me in good stead. I love the physical element of it, and things progressed really quickly, and got an opportunity with Ray Clements and Barnet.
Is it easy to just leave the army to go and play football? Because I always imagine back in the early 90s it would have been more difficult to just go say I want to go and play football.
Yeah, I was time barred. I'd signed up for 12 years and I'd done 6, and then I'd just passed a course, which meant I was time barred for like a year. So you're not supposed to leave within that year, and that would have been the October. And Ray Clements had given me a call over the summer in the June time to ask me to go up for a couple of hours training session up at Barnet to have a look at me. He said he'd had the scouts watching me all kind of season long, and all the reports were good, but he hadn't actually seen me and had the opportunity to see me himself. would I go up there for a couple of hours training session, which I did, and I liked what he saw, and he wanted to sign me. And of course, that was the next hurdle: is how could we go about getting me out of the army? And the best we maybe hoped for was the 1st of October, when the time bar finishes. I could go then, but Ray Clements had such a pull. Obviously, ex-England goalkeeper, Liverpool Spurs legend in the game. Sadly, passed away recently. But he had it was such a big pull, and the army just thought, you know what, this is great PR for us. Yeah. He's going to go anyway on the 1st of October. He's made his mind up. Why would we stand in his way now? So that was kind of they rushed it through, and I was literally out within days. It was a incredible turnaround, really. But obviously, always thankful to Ray and to Barnett, and gave me an opportunity, and relished it and loved it.
Yeah, so you mentioned there Ray Clements, for anyone listening that isn't aware of him, one of the greatest goalkeepers in English football history, probably still regarded as Liverpool's greatest ever goalkeeper, maybe Spurs as well. But that's your first professional club. Obviously, you're a goalkeeper as well. Was he probably like the dream manager to turn professional under? Because I'm sure like sometimes fans get frustrated with goalkeepers. I'm sure other players do, because we don't understand what you're going through. But you couldn't have a better man there to understand exactly what you're going through.
Yeah. Playing for kind of Farnborough Town, we had a part-time goalkeeping coach come in, but with Ray, it was every day we'd finish training, and then I'd ask him to come and because we had no goalie coach, we couldn't afford a goalie coach back then, a full-time one. So Ray would take you for another half an hour, 45 minutes, do some goalkeeping with me. But I learned most from watching the games back and the highlights back, and then sitting down with Ray. And then I would ask some questions. He would tell me his thoughts, and that's how I learned so quickly and so much with the experience of playing, and then going over things that I was unsure about, and things that I didn't see with being inexperienced. And with his experience, obviously we'd sit down and say, look, if you did this better, if you organised the back four, if you pulled him in here, that would stop that shot there. That would prevent that from happening. And forever. Hold him in such a high regard, do you know what I mean? And helped my career massively. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so working under Ray, like the technical side of your goalkeeping is going to improve massively. But even from a mental point of view, was it a massive confidence booster? A goalkeeper who has played at the top level like him, the fact that he wants you to be his goalkeeper, do you then have aspirations thinking, well, if he has trust in me, I can actually go and play at the top as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before. We're about 10 or 12 games into the season, and my biggest strength was coming for crosses. And, it's just kind of the nature of the goalkeeping position that to be a professional goalkeeper, you have to be half decent at shot stopping, let's be honest. There are some that are, just off the scale, that are so good. But my biggest strength was cross taking. And that was kind of how Ray played himself. He controlled the area and controlled the back line, and he was kind of the original sweeper keeper, as we call it now, with Neuer and all that. So, and I remember coming for the most routine cross, and 10 or 12 games into my Barnet career, and under no pressure whatsoever. And I'm already kind of half thinking, half looking at where I'm going to throw this ball to get on a quick counter-attack. And it just inexplicably just fell out of my hands, and the strikers tapped it in the goal. So, on my debut, actually, I had the hairdryer treatment off Ray for something else that had happened. And but with crosses, taking crosses being my strength, I was expecting a roasting from that mistake. And I can't remember. I think we lost the game 3-2 as well. But Ray just turned around to me and said, "Do you know what? I'll take one of them every 10 or 12 games." He says, "You should keep coming." And it kind of freed up any shackles that are on it, freed up. And then once you build up that rapport with your centre halves and they know you're coming, they'll protect you, they'll block the strikers and let you have easy pickings, really. Yeah. But if Ray had to give me a rollicking for making that error, I think my tendency would have been to stay in the goal a little bit more, and not be so free to come out, So just them couple of little words, and you just kind of brush the mistake aside. Just said, "Don't worry about it. You keep coming for the next one." Said, "I'll take one of them every 10 or 12 games. I want you to put yourself in a position that's going to come and help us out." And to be fair, you as a goalkeeper, I've found that I can make a world-class save and you don't get any pats on the back from your teammates. It's kind of, well, that's what you're there for, to make a save. But you come and take the pressure off and catch a cross, that they absolutely love it. Do you know what I mean? So, and I never looked back from that really. That kind of, the shackles were kind of taken off. And I didn't worry about making a mistake then after them, just with them few choice words, at a time when I thought I was going to get a good hiding, but it never came, So
yeah. What would his leadership style have been like in general? Because I'm thinking back to his Liverpool career. He would have played under two of the most iconic managers in Liverpool's history anyway, with Bill Shankly and Bob Paisley, like polar opposites from the documentaries and things that you watch. Shankly was very much, the motivator, the kind of galvanised us against the world, where Paisley, very soft-spoken man, would never raise his voice. What end of that spectrum, or was he somewhere in the middle, Ray?
Ray was very, very competitive, a ridiculous winner, an out-and-out born winner, and he didn't suffer any falls. And I think, I was quite hardened mentally through my army career, so I could handle all that. But he was absolutely fair with it. If you rolled your sleeves up and had a go for him, he was absolutely no problem. He can forgive mistakes, no problem whatsoever, as long as you. And let's be honest, that's any fan sitting in the stand. That's all they kind of want now. But sometimes players perceive to be just going through the motions, and fans can't understand that, especially with kind of the monetary thing. The amounts of monies that are kind of rolling around in the game now. But it's not always the correct assumption. Players do really try, but sometimes they're asked to play certain roles, and it might feel like that, or it might be perceived as that they're not giving it their all, and fans can't accept that. But obviously with Ray, if you kind of run through brick walls for him, he would back you all the way. Do you know what I mean? So he was fantastic to work for, but he had a real obsession, and he's really, really competitive and wanted to win all the time, which is great because we all wanted to be successful,
Yeah. You hear stories about, like, this was around the mid-90s, you do hear stories, particularly like pre-season training back in those days, that it can be quite physically quite demanding and a bit brutal. So you can imagine some players probably finding it very, very difficult. I'm just thinking, you came from the army, so was it almost a bit of a doddle for you?
It was, when we're in the world of sports science now, and second-day recoveries and everything else, and your body can handle a lot. It really is a machine. And when I think of kind of the regimes that we went through, and yeah, it is a little bit old school. Do you know what I mean? The game has moved on somewhat, and but no, I absolutely. I was, over the course of the years, I didn't have to run so much in pre-season. We started. As I kind of went up the divisions, we had full-time goalie coaches. So rather than run with the lads, I would do our own pre-season training with the goalkeeping coach, which wouldn't be kind of just running here, there, and everywhere. It was more specific to goalkeeping, So, but when I first joined Barnet, obviously newly from the army, I'm up there with the front runners. Do you know what I mean? I could run all day long, but over the course of years, when you're not running so much, you do lose that. Do you know what I mean? But yeah. No, I still love now keeping in shape. I still love getting a sweat on now, and it makes you feel good. It's so I absolutely relished that. It was a challenge for me. I'd been given an opportunity, but I wasn't guaranteed to be raised number one. And play in pre-season was a challenge. I was competing against another goalkeeper for the number one jersey, so I was just like, right, let's have it. Then I'm going to do better than what you do every day in terms of the physical aspect, and then I'm going to learn as we go along, and try and improve my goalkeeping, and we're fighting for that position, and that's kind of the way it is really. But there is a goalies union there without question. We're all, it's very, very seldom is the keepers not get on. Yet we're all disappointed if we're not playing, but ultimately it's the manager's decision. We all want to play, but only we appreciate only one can play. The manager makes that call, and we have to kind of accept that. And if we've got any, if we're not happy with that, then we've got to knock on the manager's door. Do you know what I mean? It's not the other goalkeeper's fault for that reason. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, there does seem to be a real loyalty, doesn't there, between goalkeepers? I even remember a couple of years ago, I think it was Ben Foster actually scored a goal. Did he took a free kick, I think, on the edge of his own box, and it bounced over. I think it was Paul Robinson, maybe the Spurs goalie, and it went straight in. And I remember...
it was the other way around.
Oh, was it? Yeah. Was it?
Ben won't like me reminding him of that. But yeah,
was it? Yeah, sorry. But I remember Paul Robinson didn't really celebrate, because I almost felt like he felt just sorry for Ben Foster, because there is that loyalty in goalkeepers, is there? But then when you're actually competing for the one position, like, is it very competitive? Because obviously, if you're not starting as a goalkeeper, you're realistically, unless there's a red card or an injury, you're not getting on a Saturday. So can it be very like fierce competition in training?
It's only fierce in that you're competing against him kind of in everything you do, but it's not fierce in kind of like you're falling out and you're round with each other. We're always kind of encouraging each other and everything else, but to be a professional, you have to be you have to be competitive. It has to be in your nature. That will to win, that desire to win, everything else has to be there. You have to be fully strong and obsessive with your work and everything else. So I'm sure, and I'd be lying if I said that I didn't go home, lock my front door, and then wish that we'd won 4-3 instead of 1-0. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like of course that goes on, but on the training field, I'd be totally respectful of the opposite goalie that I'm up against. I'd compete with him. I'd try and do a bit better than him every day in training, and try and do all the little bits and pieces to make. Because look, a week's a long time in football. Something can happen. You don't wish it on anyone, but someone might get injured or someone might get a red card, as you say. And then there's an opportunity there. The door opens, and you want to be ready yourself to take that opportunity. And over a period of time, if it's for me, I couldn't just kind of turn up and pick up my money. I was worked hard all week long. I looked forward to that buzz and playing on a Saturday. So I think the most I spent was probably 18 months at a club without being in the first team, and then okay, I accept that the challenge is just not going to happen for me here. I need to go and look for another club and to play more regularly. So
during those 18 months when you're not playing, what's the motivation like? Does the motivation
really tough? I mean, to be fair, at Fulham, Edwin van der Sar kept me out. And he's just, I learned so much from him. I think even though I wasn't playing, he developed me as a goalkeeper just by watching him, watching the way he conducted himself, and watching the way he dealt with, he made lots of mistakes like all keepers do. But the way he handled himself and the way he just wasn't fazed, he was so mentally strong. You're talking about Ben Foster. He made a comment that he felt Man United was too big for him. Kind of the pressures of playing, and he's good enough as a goalkeeper, but he just felt the pressure to win every single week at a club like that mentally was just too much. It made him not enjoy his football. You draw against Man United and it's a crisis. That's how big the club is, and he just didn't find it enjoyable at all. But Edwin, it was just an absolute match made in heaven when he went there. Seeing the way he was at Fulham, and obviously with all the experience that he'd come from Juventus and come to Fulham and having won a Champions League and everything else and playing for Ajax, and he was just a real breath of fresh air. And there's levels in any walk of life. There's levels. And that I'm not afraid to say that that was a level that I just wasn't going to keep out of the team for a long period. I might get an opportunity somewhere, and I did. He got injured. It was about Boxing Day time away at Newcastle. I played every game then to the end of the season, and we were in a relegation dogfight. And he was fit with 6 remaining games. Because I was doing so well, I stayed in the team for the last 6 games. But I just knew that at the start of the following season, I just didn't feel I was going to get a fair fight because he's so good. If I make one mistake, then he's going to be he's going to be back in the team. I just felt it was just a challenge too far for me, so I just kind of had to hold my hands up, and then the opportunity to go to Birmingham came about. And with all due respect to the keepers of Birmingham, they weren't Edwin van der Sars, so I just felt that I wasn't guaranteed to play at Birmingham, but the opportunity to play and kind of show what I was capable of, would have been far greater opportunity to get in the team there than again trying to compete against Edwin.
Just going back to when you were playing with Barnet, what division was that in relation to nowadays? Was that in League One?
League Two. League Two.
Okay, so you do then go on and you play like with Southampton, Fulham, Birmingham. You play Premier League for years.
Yeah.
So again, now I know nothing about goalkeeping. I'll hold my hands up to that. But I always imagine if you're a League Two player, outfield player, the jump is going to be massive in terms of the speed, the technical skill. But again, I think if you're a very good goalkeeper in League Two, you probably should be still decent when you go, because you're still catching crosses, you're still saving shots. Like, is that just a really ignorant opinion by me, or is there something in that?
No, Premiership players don't kick a ball any harder than those in League Two. Yeah. The quality of delivery on crosses is much, much better. So the opportunity to come for a cross is far less. That's one thing. And then, if you're talking about the mental side of the game, it's, I was going from playing in front of 2,500 people in front of 40,000 people. Yeah. That's mentally, that's tough, But I just felt, Barnet, kind of, with my wages and stuff, 40 quid clean sheet bonus was a big deal to me. We had bills to pay. So there's massive, huge pressure on trying to keep a clean sheet to get that little bonus, just to kind of not have to worry about something else, which is a distraction to me playing. So then to go and play in the Premier League when, you're on decent money then, you don't have to worry about paying your household bills.
Yeah.
I could just focus on the football, and over time it was difficult in the beginning, but over time I learned, with the guidance of Ray, learning from Van der Sar over the course of time. Yeah, it's still, if the final whistle goes and we've been beat, maybe I've made a mistake. I wasn't up for going out on a Saturday evening for a couple of drinks, maybe a bite to eat with the missus or whatever. It was kind of ruined my weekend. I just couldn't wait to get in on Monday morning and back on the training field and put it right. It kind of affected me badly that way. But what I did learn was over the course of the game, when it happens in a game, I could quickly put it to bed and refocus, because I learned that I can only control what's coming. I can't control what's already happened.
Yeah.
So, and kind of when I'd just kind of taken over goalkeeping, I wasn't really fond of goalkeeping and didn't enjoy it, because if I made an error, I might not touch the ball for 20 minutes again. And then your mind starts thinking about the error and you're dwelling on it. And then all of a sudden you expect to make a save and you don't make the save, because you're still worrying about that. And there's a lot of that I had to, learn pretty quickly, and toughen up in that respect. And, I made millions of mistakes over the course of my career. As every goalkeeper, there's human nature, you're going to make mistakes. So, I learned to, I can't control what's already happened. I can analyze it once the game's finished, and I can understand and understand why that's happened, and maybe put on a few practices and training to prevent that happening again. And I think if you learn from it that way and understand it, then it kind of sinks in, and you'll find you won't make similar mistakes too many more times. But what I could do is just forget about it for that moment, and then be in control of what I can control, which is the next shot, the next cross that comes in, keep organising and see the game through, and then worry about the mistake later on, that's something that, I had to learn over time, that came with experience and playing all the games.
So a lot of the things you're talking about there is stuff that you'll hear an awful lot of sports psychologists talk about, controlling the controllables, things like that. So I'd be interested to know what your experience with sports psychologists are, because you played for some top clubs. Obviously you played for Northern Ireland for so long. So I'm assuming all of these big teams and our international teams have got a sports psychology department in play. So did you work specifically with sports psychologists?
I've had opportunities to work with sports psychologists, and I was always open to anything that could maybe pinch a little percent here or a percent there to improve me, to make me better. And the sports psychologist that I spoke to wasn't for me, and I'll tell you the reasons why. But that's not to say he wouldn't be right for someone else. I'm totally open-minded, and I love to speak about these kind of things, absolutely. But I just didn't feel it benefited me, purely because of my background and where I'd come from, and my kind of dedication to training and all of that, and being in the army, and having kind of experience in life for 6 years in the army, and then being given an opportunity to be a professional footballer, which is kind of, most people's, as to childhood, it's most people's dream. I was like, if I'd have stayed in League Two my whole career, it wouldn't have been for not trying my hardest. So I was I didn't need a sports psychologist to give me goals and say, right, you need to reach this point at that point, and hopefully by then, because it was irrelevant to me, because as soon as I stepped over that white line, whether it be in training on a match day, I would give it my absolute best. And I'd try my hardest, and then what will be. And if I was only good enough to spend 2 or 3 years in League Two and then fall out of the game, then I could hold my hands up and say, well, look, maybe I'm just not good enough. I can accept that because I've tried. I've given it my absolute all here every single day. And, we all have bad days at the office. Some days I come in training and I don't save a shot and things are going under me and I just can't, but I will absolutely get something from that day. Yeah. And if that meant then going in the gym and just doing something, I would get something from that day. And then I'd go again the next day, reboot, go again fresh next day, away we go again. And it was just let your career path kind of take care of itself, and just work your hardest. And then that's what I tell I'm a goalkeeping coach now at Walsall, and I tell all the lads and tell the goalkeepers, I said, just the only regret you'll ever have over the course of your career, forget. My kids say to me, why didn't you play for Chelsea? Why didn't you play for Man United? I'm like, maybe I wasn't good enough. I can accept that because I couldn't have tried any harder. And the only regret I would ever have had is not because I only played in League Two all my career and didn't play any higher. That can't be a regret because that's not in your control. Yeah. All you can control is giving it your very best, try your hardest, and then your career path will take care of itself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now, goalkeepers, they just require, it's a position that requires so much focus. And obviously, you mentioned making mistakes. They need to be able to kind of switch back on straight away. So, from your experience, do a lot of goalkeepers work with sports psychologists? Because again, from the outside looking in, you would imagine it's such a specific position. It's such a mentally demanding position. You would imagine a lot of them would avail of that service.
I suppose it depends what level you play at. There's probably still an issue that some players and some guys, the mental health thing, and some they just take it as a macho thing. No, I don't need to see anyone. I can handle it myself. A manager has a big part to play in it. He's not just kind of selecting a team. He has to deal with the day-to-day involvement with the club and with the players. And I do believe that the game has changed drastically. When I come through, it was the proper the hairdryer treatment kind of for a mistake and that kind of thing. So you had to have broad shoulders to be able to accept that. But the game has changed dramatically now, and even managers like Steve Bruce, who are old school, but they're having to learn. And he was telling us that when he was my manager at Birmingham, that he couldn't kind of get his head around it to begin with, and then he'd kind of chat to Alex Ferguson, and it wasn't a myth about Alex Ferguson, his hairdryer treatment. He kind of built that reputation up at the start. Yeah. But then by the end, because he had this reputation, he didn't need to, the players kind of, you have strong characters in the dressing room, which kind of just lead the way, really. So he can be the calming influence because the players were demanding of each other anyway, so he didn't really need to get involved so much. But no, Steve was kind of saying that, and it took him a long while to kind of get his head around that, some players aren't pulling their weight. By having a go at them, you lose them altogether. You have to kind of put your arm around the shoulder and kind of, come on, you're my best player. We need you here, kind of thing. And there's different ways of doing it, But I think the key is knowing that guy's personality and who they are and how you treat that person,
Yeah.
But let's be honest, I used to get nervous on the bus on the way to the stadium, and just as we're pulling up in the stadium, seeing all the commotion outside, fans, working so hard for the money to pay for tickets, and then they'll have a couple of beers and they'll have a pie and they'll be so excited for the game. I didn't want to let them down. That was my biggest fear.
Yeah.
And once I got off the coach, got in the dressing room, got changed, I couldn't wait to get out on the pitch and start warming up, and then I'd calm down now. And then, I learned after that it was irrelevant whether there's 70,000 people in the stadium or it's a training ground 11v11, because I was so competitive and obsessive to win any kind of match, whether it be the training ground game or in front of 70,000. Once that whistle went, all my nerves just kind of disappeared, and it was almost like it was just everything else was a blur. It was just 11v11 on that green bit of grass.
Yeah.
But that's not, times are changing now, and we have players at Walsall now who are relishing not having fans at the stadium at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Because they can't handle it. Do you know what I mean? It's so right when things are going well for you, but when they're not, and people are barracking you, it's hard to let it go, especially as a goalkeeper, because like I say, you might not see the ball for another 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to notice what's going on, So
yeah, I want to go back to what you said there about the pre-game, like the nerves and things like that. What would your pre-game ritual have been? And I don't just mean physically, I mean even like your thought process before a game. I remember it was David James, I think I saw clips of him before in the little practice goal they have at the side before a game, diving. But there's no balls coming at him. He was like visualizing the balls and he was diving. Like, so it might not have been as extreme as that, but did you have like a mental process you'd go through as a goalkeeper?
No, I'd kind of covered all the bases during the course of the week in training. So I knew what I was going to come up against, because we do a lot of work on the opposition, how they kind of attacked our goal, where they kind of put crosses in. So we'd work a little bit on that and this kind of thing. And I'd study strikers as well and how they like to finish. Do they kind of try and sit you down and dink it over you? Do they kind of pass it down the sides of you? So all that would be ticked. So all I wanted to do was I just wanted to feel good. I wanted to, catch everything clean, and kind of be ready. I always like Friday was my most important day. I never wanted to come off the training field on Friday unless I felt good and finish well, and then that would just kind of lead then into the Saturday, and then it was just I would always take the only thing I used to do, because some lads don't even speak about football, that they get together, they have the banter, and once that whistle goes, then they can kind of switch on. Whereas mine was kind of a process where I'd get focused, get tuned in, and I'd go and maybe speak to a couple of the defenders and say, remember him, he's all right-footed, he wants to come in on his right, so show him down the line, keep him away from the goal, that kind of thing. Just a few little specific things that we kind of spoke about, maybe in the team meetings, stuff like that. So I'd kind of reiterate that kind of thing. And then I used to take myself off before I go out for the warm-up. I'd always get the team programme. I'd take a towel, go in the shower room, put my feet up against the wall, and then read the programme for 2 or 3 minutes. And it's kind of like, the blood that would flow out of your legs and kind of come through you. And it kind of felt like I had a spring in my step then after doing that. But then I had a series of routine from there. I'd go into a series of stretches on the floor there on the towel. And I was away from the rest of the lads. I wasn't listening to stories that were going on and, banter and, lads taking the mick out of each other and everything else. I was in my own space then for that moment. Just getting my head together, reading a little bit of the programme, good stretch, then gloves on, and then out on the field and ready to go then. And then it was just full focus on the game. Like I did feel that, there'd be occasions where I just, because of my background and everything else, I just wanted to give my career the best opportunity of being successful. So, there'd be some occasions where I'd go out for a drink, and especially in the early days, not so much these days. The lads are proper pros now. Do you know what I mean? They're all in the same boat. Sports science has really, really come on and made players aware that you can't drink Saturday night if you're playing again Tuesday. Your recovery times is just wiped away. The game's just too quick now. Yeah. Lads are proper athletes now, but obviously all them years ago, sometimes the lads would go out for a couple of drinks on a Saturday night with a Tuesday night game. And there'd be occasions where I would have had a few drinks on a Saturday night and got man of the match Tuesday, which was fine, no problem. But if I'd gone out on a Tuesday night and had a few drinks and had a bad game on a Tuesday, it's because I went out Saturday. So I just quashed that straight away. Right, it's not going to happen anymore. I just wanted to kind of tick all the boxes, and then you can make an error. Human nature, you're going to make an error. Whether you've had the most perfect preparation ever, you can still make an error. It can still happen. So, but at least then I had no regrets then, because I ticked all the boxes in terms of all my preparation, done everything right. And it's just one of them things. So I could live with that. But what I couldn't live with, if I hadn't prepared properly, then I made an error, and then it's because I hadn't prepared properly. So
yeah, just hearing you talk there as well, it sounds like the higher the level you went up, the more like almost study was involved. Like you're saying, you know, where this striker likes to finish that way or whatever. Like this is Torres, he likes to dink or whatever it is. So the higher level you go up, does goalkeeping almost become less instinctive and more like, again, like I said, right, this is Fernando Torres running through. So whereas usually I might do this time I'm going to stand big or whatever.
Well, it's still instinctive in that, you know, every game is a new challenge. Yeah. Every situation can be brand new to, especially, you know, so many, you know, 22, 23-year-olds now playing as number one in the Premiership. It's incredible. Whereas when I was coming through, they're all late 30s, you know, the mid-30s before they develop, because the experience that gets them through. But no, you can't possibly cover every eventuality. Yeah. So you have to do a lot of your drills and everything else will be, you know, kind of instinctive, that kind of work, you know. So that'll never leave the game for sure. Yeah. But it's just in adversity, you know, I don't think I'm wrong in saying that, you know, Pickford struggled a little bit. You can see he's erratic. He's made a few mistakes, and you can see, you know, he's almost trying to redeem himself at times and put himself in positions to try and redeem himself, but he's actually making two wrongs instead of just calming down a little bit, you know. So, but I'm sure they'll be working hard with him because he's a fantastic goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? So, it's just the only thing with going high up the levels, you know, we've been exposed to Match of the Day when I was coming through a Match of the Day, so I'd study them, I'd watch strikers playing a Match of the Day, that kind of thing. But now there's just no. I mean, the higher you go now, the resources there. Obviously, the money is just no object. You know, the resources there and the footage of everything. I mean, even now at League Two level, you know, you have camera phones. You have we have analysis at League Two level now, covering games. You have Y-Scout. You can literally punch in someone's name and all their clippings come up and everything else. It's just incredible detail now compared to, you know, when I was kind of coming through. Match of the Day was about as far as we got, you know, and I was always on the highlights when I played at Barnet because we were always conceding goals, so I could always watch my clippings.
So you spoke with this a few minutes ago, but I just want to ask you again about when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, you know, because if a goalkeeper makes a mistake, 9 times out of 10 it's a goal, so it's a kind of a high profile error. And you did say you kind of looked at that as well. I can't control that anymore, so just kind of move on. Now that's obviously a great attitude to have, but probably a little bit easier said than done. Mm-hmm. So did that just come through experience, or did you have a little kind of was there a mental process you went through to that kind of reset your mind almost?
It was. I always tell my goalkeepers now to respect every single ball, no matter how simple you think it is. I spoke about the cross that I took in the early days of my Barnet career and expecting a rollicking off Ray, and he said, "Don't worry about it. It's one of the things you keep coming." What I have learned is that the big mistakes happen because to the goalkeeper it seems the most routine, simple save that they've made a million times in training before, and they just fractionally come off it, and then before you know it, you're not fully focused. Before you know it, it's got away from you and it's gone in the goal. And you're like, how is that possible? How has that happened? I can't believe it. You know, like today of all days, I've done that a million times with my eyes closed before in training. How has it happened today? So I just say respect every ball until it's in your grasp, until you've got it, and then you can worry about what you're going to do with it. And that's when you come unstuck. And I just think, like, you know, the more experience you get, the less frequent the mistakes are, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, you don't have to deal with it so regularly, you know. But it's a difficult one because as you're learning with the inexperience, it's catch-22. You're inexperienced. You're going to make a few more errors along the way. But then are you going to give up your position then to the other goalie because you made too many errors?
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, but with experience, you're going to make less mistakes. You're going to stay in the team. You're going to, you know, it's just one of them. You know, the worst thing that can happen is for a goalkeeper to make a mistake and then the manager come for him. You know, he knows he's made the mistake He's going to be feeling bad about it. You know, he doesn't need someone telling him that he's made a mistake. You know, he needs the backing. Then, you know, a little bit of love sometimes. You know, it's you know, it's one of them. But not all managers are the same. You know.
Yeah. Is it the same in terms of, you know, getting stick from the crowd? Because I can imagine as a goalkeeper, if you're playing in front of the Cop end or the Stretford end, I'm sure there's times you're getting it from both barrels, like just getting absolutely barraged with abuse or whatever. So is that just experience as well? The more you go on, you become bulletproof to that kind of stuff.
I don't know how, but obviously as a goalkeeper, it's got to be the hardest position to actually redeem yourself.
Yeah.
Because I can't run around and go and tackle someone or go and get after the ball and set. I'm standing around now for 15 minutes waiting to see the ball again, getting abuse from all angles. It's like, so, but you know, for some reason, you know, I'm quite well thought of at all my previous clubs, which I'm really humbled about. You know, it means a lot to me. So just by the way you conduct yourself, I mean, how do you show you care being a goalkeeper? I can't roll my sleeves up now and really run myself into the ground because I'm not an outfield player can just go and do that. That's the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But as a goalkeeper, how can I show I care? You know, well, for a start, don't be seen out on a Saturday night if you've been beat. Just simple little things like that. If someone, you know, wants an autograph, give them your time. You know, it takes 5 minutes. You know, certainly the clubs I played at, I'm not, you know, we're not at Man United here with there's 2,000 people there wanting autographs. Do you know what I mean? But you know, the clubs that I've played for, you know, I can sign all 30 autographs in 10 minutes and I can be on my way and they can be on their way and I kind of made their day and everything. And we've just been beat and, you know, someone might have a few things to say and I'll just be accepting that you know, it wasn't good enough today. You know, we'll try and do better next week kind of thing, you know, along those lines. And I've made so many mistakes at all the clubs I've been at, but I'm held in quite high regard at all the clubs, just by the way you conduct yourself and just by showing you care for them doing them silly things, you know, away from the stadium, away from the field. Do you know what I mean? And just being a kind of a normal, you know, normal guy, really, you know.
Yeah. I want to ask you about one of the most kind of interesting parts of the sport in terms of from a mental point of view, which is a penalty kick. So there have been loads of sports psychology, like studies done on penalty takers before. I'm not going to try quote them because I'll get them wrong. But basically, there's been studies done where, you know, the proof is there that the higher the pressure, the more likely the player is to miss. So it is very clear that it's a very mental thing. But from a goalkeeper's perspective, is there almost no real pressure on you? Is it almost a bit of a free hit? And because you know there's a lot of pressure on the kicker, are you trying to do anything to psych him out or to put him off?
I suppose there's no real. It is a free hit. It's a chance to kind of be a hero, you know, as such. But I didn't save one for the first 11 penalties against me. I didn't save one. So then the pressure starts cranking up a little bit. You're like, geez, any chance? The law of averages. I'll save one sooner like that. But then I actually wasn't too bad. Then, you know, I'd saved quite a few of them before the end of my career. I'd not too bad a record, but the start was horrendous, and it was people used to talk about it. I think, well, we're not really expected to make the save, you know. So give me a chance. But no, look, we do all the studies, you know. Even now at our level, I'll turn on Y-Scout and we'll look at the opposition. Right, we're playing X team. And their whole list of penalty takers from the last 5, 6, 7 years, they all come up and every single penalty where they've put it is exact. And there'll be 25 dots that side, 25 dots that side, 3 in the middle. I'm thinking, what have I got to work with here? It's just like, so you can do all the study that you want, but it's just down to the moment. And I just say to the goalkeeper, look, you know, just pick your side. You know, that there are a few little things that maybe help you with kind of the angle of the run up and whatnot. But I hated getting beat the way I've dived. Yeah. So you have to go a fraction early. But if you go early now, sometimes they watch you. So there has to be that optimum point where you need to go to reach the post. and he's put his head down to kick the ball, you know. So, but you look at the your man at Man United now has that kind of the skip and the jump.
Fernandes, yeah.
Yeah, Fernandes. As he's jumping, he's looking at the goalkeeper, and before he hits the ground, the keeper's kind of moving. So then he just puts it the other side. That's why he does it. So you have to be brave to stay, and at the final moment, everybody looks down at the ball before they strike the ball, and that's the moment you have to just go and really commit to the side that you've committed. You decided you're going to go. So.
Sometimes though you'd see goalkeepers maybe talking to the kicker, maybe even pointing to a side, go here, you know, just trying to play with his head a bit. Did you used to do that?
No, I didn't get involved in all that now. I forget his name now in the Champions League final. Bruce Grobbelaar from years ago with the all that on the line and all that. So Jersey Dudek, did it in the Champions League final. Just any kind of advantage. You know what I mean? It's. Try it, why not? Do you know what I mean? I never got involved in all that, but a lot of the time, I kind of decided in my mind which way I was going to go before he'd even come up to me. So it didn't matter what the player did. I knew I was going to go that way, and then you're in the lap of gods, and you hope that he goes that way, you know. So the only way we played. Brentford had beaten Everton in the previous round. We played them at Birmingham in 2011 when we won the Carling Cup. So I played the first 3 rounds, and then Ben Foster came in and played right through to the final. And we'd studied that they beat Brentford on penalties the game before, and their last penalty taker smashed it down the middle, and we're 5-4 up or something like that, or 4-3 up. I think we both missed one, and then we've scored to go 5-4, and then I stood up and a 4-4 armed it over the crossbar. But it was only because we watched the one before. So, but then he might think, well, he's watched that one, I'll have to put it somewhere different. It's just cat and mouse. It's just one of them. You know what I mean?
It's all just a mental game, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
There's a couple of footballers now I spoke to in the past on the podcast, like Ray Houghton and Keith Fahey, who I actually think was probably a teammate of yours.
Great.
And we spoke about retirement, and they both said that they found retiring very difficult because, you know, they were known as the footballers. You yourself, you would have been known as Maik Taylor, the goalkeeper, for the last 20 years, whatever it may have been. Did you find retirement difficult?
Not really, because retirement from playing, I was nearly 42 at the time, but my shoulder had gone, so the decision was out of my hands, you know. But Father Time comes to us all, and you know, I wasn't kind of, you know, 32, 33, wishing, you know, home for another year or something, and kind of carrying on and being, you know, still fit and well. I physically couldn't carry on, so it was easy. It was a natural thing to do. It was getting to the last 2 years of my career was tough in that, you know, trying to prepare because I didn't want to not have a contract at a club because, you know, I was having the extra day rest, which maybe I should have done for my body because I was getting on. You know, I was over 40. I didn't want any concession for my age. I was still hell bent on training full on, and, you know, ultimately the detriment of my shoulder went. It was just too much on my body in the end. But I'd be up at 7 o'clock in the morning, hot bath, stretch before coming into training, and then I'd warm up doing the training, full on training. Then I'd go home, bath and stretch again, and it just becomes, you know, really tedious at that stage, you know. So, but then now I kind of retired and fell straight into the job with Northern Ireland with the senior squad as a coach. So no, it was nice to have some time off. To be fair, remember the first pre-season when I knew all the lads were going back, and I was kind of 42 and didn't have to go back for pre-season training. That was a bliss. I had the golf clubs out. I was like, oh, this is so good not to have to go in now. It was just the right time, you know. Yeah. That helped mentally, you know. There's lots of lads that have got all the money in the world, and, you know, they can stay in the game if they want. They can do other things if they want, business interest, everything else, and they still really struggle with that. it's just that buzz of a Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock. You have unbelievable highs in that dressing room when you get a win, and incredible lows when you don't get a win. And at the latter end of my career, I had 2 years. I had a year sitting on the bench to Joe Hart at Birmingham, and then Ben Foster for a year before I went to Leeds, and trained hard all week long. And if the lads got a great result, yeah, I'm pleased for them, pleased for the team. It's great, but I didn't play any part, so I wasn't ecstatic. And then we'd get beat, and it was kind of like, well, I haven't contributed at all, so it's nothing to do with me really. But I'm disappointed, but not. It's kind of just a level playing. But I wanted to have that and that. Do you know what I mean? I accepted having the low because of the highs. And believe me, in football, unless you're playing at Man United or Man City, there's far more lows than there are highs over the course of a season. Believe me. So. But they both come with each other. But I take the lows because the highs are so good. But that's what players miss. But I pick up a tennis racket now. I go and play golf now. I'm so ultra competitive. I just have to win that. And that's kind of my buzz now. I see that flag and I hit a golf straight into that flag. It's like playing in front of 50,000 in my head. I'm so competitive still. Yeah. Body doesn't work like it once used to, but in my head, I play any sport with the boys now. They have to earn any wins against me. I won't just lie down and let them roll over. They have to earn it.
Yeah. So I know you're goalkeeping coach now with Walsall as well. I'm sometimes actually surprised that top goalkeepers don't go on and become top head coaches or managers, because if you think about I suppose a goalkeeper is an organizer, isn't he? He has to be tactically very astute in terms of his organisation and spotting attacks coming at them as well. So. Are you happy to stay as a goalkeeping coach, work exclusively with goalkeepers, or would you like to manage?
It's all I know. It's all I know. When I played, it was all I was interested in. I wasn't interested in what happened in the last third of the field. That's how I kept focused, kept organising, kept my concentration was by continually talking to my back line, and not concerning myself with what's going on at the top end of the field. So. I went on to do my coaching badges, and I learned so much on them. And I actually know more than what I believed I knew. Just with players' movements and stuff like that, stuff that I'd just taken for granted, I hadn't even considered. I'd organise, I'd put a defender in the correct position, and then I just took it for granted that he would just defend that situation. Then that's his down to him now as a defender. I'll kind of tell him where the player is, what I want him to do with, in terms of showing him the player, down the line or whatever, and then he's got to go and do it. But I didn't really study what he does. You know what I mean? The only bits I kind of know is just kind of because I'd played outfield for so long till I was 19, so I kind of knew without actually. I just kind of did it without someone telling me. You pick up as you go along. So, but. No, I'm not. I've no interest in that. I love having a one-to-one with the goalies. With 3 or 4 goalies in our own little bits and pieces, and contributing our way, and making sure that department is on the ball, and then that obviously integrates into the bigger picture, and trying to develop these goalkeepers and help them with their careers. Yeah. And ultimately, if they're doing well, and they get a move away from Walsall, then Walsall have got to be doing well, and they've got to be doing well. So yeah.
Is the work you do with the goalkeepers of Walsall, is it not just the technical side of goalkeeping? Would you be a little bit of a mental coach in a way, talking about the pressures of goalkeeping, like you've said before, bouncing back from mistakes, dealing with pressure? Are you a little bit of are you kind of their sports psychologist in a sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I've even just recently spoke to a couple of lads and said, it might be something that they might be open to. I said always be open-minded, and it might be something they might think about doing, is going to see a sports psychologist, but I do like to sit down and have a cup of tea and not even chat football, but just talk about the life and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. And I've lots of experiences obviously with my playing career that I can draw upon. There's probably any situation, any mistake they're going to make, I've made already, so I can draw on them experiences and how I felt and how I tried to deal with it, and it might work for them, it might not work for them, but it's stuff that we'll discuss. So the manager then has decisions to make, who's going to play and who's not going to play. If we've got number one in, and then the manager wants to make the change, which he has done, then I have to approach things, and I know it's going to be a sensitive kind of subject, and how I approach kind of training with the one that's just been left out, knowing that he's going to be low. Yeah. I have to kind of keep them upbeat and keep, the manager's obviously going to be bad cop then, so I have to try and be good cop. Do you know what I mean? As best I can. We can't just both hammer someone. I have to then go, so right, okay, manager's made the decision now. We have to accept that now. Whether you agree or not, the manager kind of will explain his reasons why. He's good like that. But then we kind of have to reflect, and we'll have to go, right, this is the reasons why. That's what the manager said. This is what he's telling me. These are the areas we need to work on, and we'll get you back firing, and then be ready. And if you get the opportunity again, then you take it again. So.
That's brilliant. So it's brilliant hearing all about your career, but there is two questions that I ask everyone at the end, just in terms of mentality. So the first one is, what athlete in the history of sport would you admire most from a mental point of view, and why?
Without really thinking about it, I'd maybe go Muhammad Ali. Yeah, just because he'd been through so much over the course of his life. Came back, I think he come back and become world champion again three separate times. He lost the title and came back. Unbelievable mental strength and belief in himself. I'd go in off the top of my head.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Actually, if I just limit it just to goalkeepers, actually, seeing as I have you on, is there any kind of goalkeeper that stands out in terms of mentality, or even beyond mentality, in terms of just technical skill? Who would you really looked up to as a goalkeeper?
Well, Van der Sar.
Yeah.
Van der Sar was just the most incredible, incredibly mentally strong guy I'd ever come across. He would not change as a person, and the way he conducted himself, no matter what. If you spoke to him 5 minutes after a match and he's thrown 2 goals in, it was completely irrelevant on whether he's man of the match. Nothing changed. It was just a game of football. Because the thing is, what is important is that you try your best, and it's human nature. You're going to make mistakes. As a goalkeeper, you're going to make mistakes, and it's probably the most difficult position to be able to handle that and deal with that, because let's be honest, you just want to dig a big hole and jump in it, and when you get embarrassed from all sides, and it can be the most routine save that any Sunday League goalie can make, and you can make that mistake in front of 100,000 people. It's just the nature of the beast. But he was unflustered, irrelevant. What's gone on? He just reboot and go again as quick as anything. His demeanour, his mannerism, nothing would change at all. So strong, and it was just a match. Like I said, it was a match made in heaven. Him going to Man United, he could handle that because he was a real winner as well. Yeah.
Unbelievable goalkeeper. So the last question then is, if you could go back to the start of your career, let's just say when you're leaving the army and you're turning pro, and give that younger version of yourself just a bit of advice, again from a mindset, mentality point of view, what would you say?
It's a difficult one for me to answer that, because, like I said before, it's I couldn't have tried any harder in on any given day. I just went into it just with a clear mind, no real end goal on where I wanted my career to finish. I was just so grateful for an opportunity. I had 6 great years in the army, taught me a lot, but now I was given the opportunity, stuff of dreams, to become a professional footballer. So I've no regrets over the course of my career. So it's difficult to say what I would change at the start. I wish some of the the way the lads kick the ball now with this side volley, that wasn't in my day. And it is such an unbelievable weapon that they're all growing up to use now. But I never had that in my game. Kicking wasn't my strongest point. But that can't be a regret because it's just the way it was. Yeah. So no, I can't. If I did it all again, it would be exactly the same. I'd just apply myself every day, exactly the same. Anything else is just kind of wisdom that an experience that you learn in any walk of life. You learn and you gain experience as you go along. You make mistakes, you learn from them, you bounce back, and you grow stronger from it. That's it.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. Well, thanks very much, Mike, for taking the time to come on to the podcast. Anyway, really appreciate it, and have a good Christmas.
Have a good Christmas yourself.
Cheers. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers.
A big thanks this week to Maik Taylor for coming onto the podcast. I've wanted to have a goalkeeper on who's played at the top level for quite a while now because, again, like I said at the start, it's just such an interesting position from a mentality point of view. So to have someone of Mike's experience who capped 88 times for Northern Ireland, played professional football and Premier League football for so many years, just to have him on to talk all about the mental side of goalkeeping was absolutely brilliant. So thanks very much, Mike, for taking the time, and thanks everyone for watching as well. Have a good Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll be back a few weeks into 2021 with some more athletes. Thanks everyone.